hello everyone again. Time flies. We are back already for the second panel of the day. I hope in between the panels you have nice discussion. You already did some interviews. You explored the open vacancies, and yeah. Now we're going to talk about how to stand out in PEVC. I mean, about the important skills. And I would like to welcome for this panel Jeffrey from Elvinger Hoss and Tobias from One Group Solutions. So welcome, gentlemen.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us this morning. I think to start with, it would be great if you could introduce yourselves briefly, and also of your firms. what you work, one of you work in a law firm, another in a alternative investment fund manager. So very two different business lines, but very critical to the private equity ecosystem. Can we start with you, Jeffrey?
Sure. Thanks, and good morning, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Kolbet. I'm a partner in the alternative funds team of Elvinger Hoss Prussen, which is one of the leading law firms in Luxembourg. And we specialize basically on four core practices, being investment funds, so asset management in general, corporate banking finance, dispute resolution, and tax.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Tobias?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you. My name is Tobias Ettlin. I work in the Luxembourg funds industry. I'm a partner at One Group Solutions, a fund governance service provider here in Luxembourg. We are, among other things, an alternative investment fund manager. So we are directly involved with Luxembourg domiciled PE fund structures and other fund structures, and I'll explain what all of that means. I am also the Chief Compliance Officer here at the group, and I'm in charge of the firm's compliance program and ensure that at all times we're in line with all applicable laws, rules, and regulations. Looking forward to the panel.
Thank you very much. Maybe you would like to mention, both of you, I mean, what roles are now open into your firms?
Yeah, very happy to do so. We have a stand at today's event. So it's a One Group Solutions. So please stop by and talk to our HR manager, Emmanuel Jacquemot. We currently have 8 open positions that Manu would be thrilled to speak to you about, including 4 internships that we're looking to fill next year, amongst them in the fund management team, so in our portfolio management team at the fund that I'll be talking about more in a minute. So please stop by our stand.
You, Jeffrey?
And yes, likewise, I think we do have openings that are more specifically referenced on our website, but we usually and regularly have open positions for all types of, obviously, legal profiles, so lawyers, qualified, non-qualified, but also paralegals, as well as all ancillary positions within a firm like ours, such as assistance or marketing, business development, accounting. So we have various positions, but obviously our core business would be
very diverse roles.
Profiles. Yeah.
Yes, because you are a law firm, but you have a certain size. You also have some management roles in the firm and accounting, exactly. As you just mentioned. Well, that's a good topic to start with. I mean, you come out of your master in law, and you can actually do a lot of different things. What specifically do someone that wants to work in private equity should be more focused on, should be more qualified into? What kind of streams that person should be opting now for those that are still studying, or those that want to make some specialization still? What kind of background?
Like extra training, soft skills, certificates?
Maybe I'll start on this one, Tobias. I think there is, especially for the legal studies, there is very limited amount of academic courses that are based on specifically private equity or alternative funds in general. I think that there is one master that is specialized in investment funds that is sponsored by the University of Luxembourg. And obviously, if you have this academic background, then you already have first insights into the private equity ecosystem and the various players that are based in Luxembourg. But I think apart from the academic background, there are also a vast number of correspondents, such as the LPA, with a very comprehensive website. There are obviously market players, be there audit firms, law firms, A firms that nowadays have taken an approach to be a bit more proactive towards the public and also offer various courses, seminars, etc. So that is quite easy to get in and have an access point or get to know people from the field and have live discussions. So I think once you have a keen interest into private equity, I think it is key to get yourself familiar with what private equity is all about and to kind of make your own research of the market, be it online or, as I said, due to the various offerings that are being made by the market players. I think that would be the first first step.
It probably applies to both of you, but anyone wanting to work in private equity, either from a legal side or a fund administration side, needs to be familiar with the regulation in place with Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive. Should that be a starting point for those that want to come into this sector?
Yes, ideally, yes. It's true, of course, that a lot of it is learning by doing and learning on the job. But from me, coming from the fund side, so as you will surely know, private equity operates with investors and uses funds to invest in private companies or buy out public companies. And I come from this fund specific side. So in our firm, we hire very much based on personality and personality fit. For us, it's very important that someone fits into the team and the culture of the firm, even more so than technical skills. We expect people to, what we like to call, be an intrapreneur at our firm. So an entrepreneur within the firm, someone who takes ownership, someone who points out weaknesses in a process or weaknesses in a procedure, someone who's very analytical. That's key, especially when it comes to private equity and analyzing deals and performing due diligence. So the analytical side is very important. We look for a solid finance background when we hire teams, when we hire people for our portfolio management team. And again, coming back to the personality side, someone who's critical but who is constructive. We're a relatively young firm. We're growing very fast here in Luxembourg, but we're trying to keep that young spirit and be a little bit different from most other firms and other alternative investment fund managers in Luxembourg. So we have no corporate titles. We only have functional titles. We don't believe it's important where you stand in the hierarchy, but what you contribute to the team and the firm. We have no personal offices. We've done away with all of those corporate status symbols, but very flexible work arrangements, teleworking, and so forth. But in return for that, we expect from you to really check your ego at the door, and be high on work ethic and low on personal ego. That's really what we're looking for.
Let me help you there, to be one.
That's nice. I'll use that.
Jeffrey, I think you still have say, a more traditional organization. But I would like to come to a point where we recently worked together on the recruitment, and one of the things that stood out is that people that you were expecting to have some, key knowledge of certain areas, notably the AFMD and the most recent regulation, actually were not up to date, or were not up to the standards that you would be expecting.
Exactly, and I think there's obviously a difference between the lateral hire and people that are being recruited kind of out of university. So we do obviously have a very large large amount of people coming directly from the university because they need to do their first kind of internship as a stage judiciaire, which needs to be with a law firm. So we generally tend to see more students than lateral hires, but nonetheless, secondary market is also very important for us. And I would echo what Tobias said, and maybe add that attitude is really important in those interviews. So I'm actually part of also our internal recruitment committee at the HP. And so I do see quite a lot of profiles that apply for positions at our firm. And one thing that struck me, Louis, when we were doing interviews together with the LPA, is that people very often are not humble, but you will have an impression or expectation that they know everything about a given field of subject, the way they initially presented themselves, etc. But then when you kind of go into a deep dive to get to know where they stand in terms of credentials, understanding of the market and the regulations, it turns out that obviously they were not prepared for the interview. And so that is really key. You have to prepare for an interview. It takes more than just 10 minutes. You need to know what to expect in terms of questions that are going to be asked, but you also need to understand kind of the broader scope or the broader content of the position that you're applying for. And so I think that's really key. You need to have a very keen interest, a good attitude, present yourself in a correct manner, and stay humble, because you have everything to you have to grow, you have everything to learn, but you shouldn't give the impression that you're already fully the all-knowing person.
It is a sector that always changes, so you need sometimes to dedicate personal time also to grow. I think exactly. That this is also very important.
But let me just remind everyone that you can also, those that are watching this session, that you can also ask questions.
Yeah, you use the Q&A.
With the Q&A box in the platform.
I wanted to, this is a session about how to stand out. We have some junior people here outside of Luxembourg that they would like to join the country and the sector. And of course, they need to have all these analytical skills. They need to be up to date. They need to have their bachelor's and master's and to be entrepreneurs. But let's say that after a successful recruitment, you want to stand out, you want to become a young leader in the sector. What do you need to do to achieve this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think if you can go the extra mile to stand out a little bit from your peers in Luxembourg, I would definitely recommend that. And ways to do that, to my mind, are really mainly within the network in Luxembourg and beyond, and also the industry groups that Luxembourg offers. It's true that the specific training offering, especially around PE and VC, is probably limited, but nevertheless, there are industry groups such as the LPEA, and also such as ALFI and other Luxembourg-based industry groups that accept memberships, that have committees, that have working groups, which tend to be highly specialized, and also in the alternative asset classes space, such as PE. So if you can participate in a group like that and contribute to the industry and the Luxembourg landscape, and perhaps eventually even take a leadership role in such a working group, I think that is a great way to stand out in Luxembourg and create a network.
Mm-hmm.
And I would maybe add that what's also important is the simple fact of getting out of your comfort zone, and that can be also via speaking publicly for one of the organizations, or being involved and dedicating your free time to actually these committees, but also presentations and leading by example. So that's kind of the way you progress and grow rapidly, is when you get outside of your comfort zone, and I think that is key.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, if I may say, that Luxembourg is a country that offers this opportunity to people to contribute a lot. And you see that most of the players are very open to collaborate and bring results all together on the table.
And maybe more than other countries.
Exactly.
Where so many people is coming from abroad. People actually come at the same level, meaning there's no, of course, some people may have stronger networks to start with, but many others really participate with the knowledge
opportunities around, yeah.
and with the knowledge they build in the market themselves and how they position themselves in the market. So meaning that a lot of that self-branding, and also linking a bit with the networking session we had before, a lot of that self-branding is clearly defined by the person and how this person wants to be perceived in the market by the other peers. And
but it's a very welcoming sectoral way. So
exactly, and each of us will have a different way to position yourself and to share your skills. But it's true that the committees of LPA have been relevant for many people, because we follow many for many years already, and we know that people have been able to progress and become more specialized in certain subjects thanks to those working groups.
And Luis, that's maybe a good example, the working groups, because when I started my career in the alternative funds sector, I previously worked on more banking finance, cross-border financings, but then I moved over to EHP to do funds. I got involved at the LPA in the Young Private Equity Leaders Committee, and started actually to organize conferences. I went to a couple of speaker positions when you were doing your road shows. I think it was in Frankfurt. I participated in Berlin. So there were a couple of opportunities actually that were very relevant, and I would say also gave me exposure towards the market. And so I think that is really important to be active, aside from your day-to-day job in these type of organizations, and that can really help you to kind of also fast track on not only personal but career level as well.
It does show a commitment and an interest to stand out in that area. And now, for those of you who have not noticed, Jeffrey is in the board of the LPA as well. So all from the Young Leaders Committee.
Yeah, it's a great point, and I can only underscore what you mentioned about Luxembourg before, Luis and Evie. I've only moved here 3 years ago, just about to the day. Lived in other countries before, and Luxembourg really is unique for someone starting out in our industry. It's obviously quite small as a country, but it's extremely diverse and international. And I found it to be extremely welcoming to newcomers. There's a sense of teamwork here in the industry, and my experience personally was that Luxembourg has welcomed me with open arms.
And I'm very grateful to hear that as a local.
We are both, say, foreigners.
Yeah, exactly.
And we we totally agree with your words. Yes.
So I like the fact that we are sharing, personal experience here, and this is, I think, very, very helpful for the people. I would like also to know, if you can share your career evolution and the career evolution in your firms. So how this is working.
Sure, I'm happy to go first on that. So I'm, a lifelong compliance officer. Oh, don't hold that against me. But I started out in the asset management industry many years ago as a compliance officer, and then in the end headed up the compliance program for a large US-based asset management firm. Was based in London and handled all compliance matters and the whole program for Europe for them. And that's when I made the move to Luxembourg to join One Group Solutions. So internally, in terms of what we do, maybe I can just explain that very, very briefly. So when I say we're an alternative investment fund manager, what does that mean? As I said before, private equity operates out of investment funds. So if a private equity manager wishes to raise capital for investments via a Luxembourg-based structure, but they may not necessarily have a presence here in Luxembourg physically, they need some sort of substance and governance here locally in Luxembourg. And that's when a third-party alternative investment fund manager, such as ourselves, comes into play. So what do? We really are responsible for all the regulatory aspects of the investment management process, and to ensure that all the investors in the private equity fund, receive adequate protection and make sure that their interests are always put first. But specifically, what does that mean for someone working in our portfolio management team and dealing with private equity funds? So we, as an alternative investment fund manager, are responsible for all the deals that are invested in, all the companies that are invested in on a private equity or venture capital basis by the fund. So we are in charge of valuing those deals, and we're responsible for the ongoing valuation of those deals. We're responsible for the risk management around those deals. We're responsible for the investment management compliance, so making sure that the fund is in line with all its compliance restrictions. And our portfolio management team specifically is very close to those private equity deals. They perform a complete due diligence of a proposed PE deal. They perform deal analysis. They write very extensive investment memos to make sure that the deal makes economic sense, that it makes sense for the fund investors. They look at how the deal is structured. And again, all the risk management and compliance and AML checks. So they're very close to these deals in order to present it to an investment committee here at the AFIM at our firm, so that this committee can approve the deal and ensure that it is in the best interest of the investors of the fund. So very interesting work and very close to the actual activities of a PE or VC asset manager.
So on my side, I did my legal studies in Strasbourg and Luxembourg, and then I joined Clifford Chance in 2011. I was there for three years, a bit more than 3 years, and as an associate handling day-to-day activities such as cross-border financing, security packages for lenders, but also borrower side. And in 2014, just shortly after the implementation of AFMD, I joined EHP, and more specifically to do investment funds. And due to this new kind of regulatory wave, tsunami at that time, I took the opportunity to specialize in alternative funds with a predominant strategy of PEVC, but also real estate infra and debt. And I actually went through what is kind of very typical career track or path at law firms, which starts at associate level, you become senior associate, and then you become counsel and or partner. So I then made partner in 2020 in our alternative funds team, and we are actually helping investment fund managers to set up and structure their investment funds in Luxembourg. Now, this might seem very conceptual, but in reality, it means that we are looking with clients to see what type of funds in our Luxembourg toolbox might be suitable for their to carry out their investment strategy. We're setting up the funds from a legal perspective, so all the legal documentation. We're in negotiations with investors, drafting side letters, negotiating their investment terms, up until the liquidation of the fund. So actually we cover the whole spectrum of funds from the very beginning, the inception, until the final liquidation, which gives us a good insight on the whole value chain and also the life of a fund.
Yeah, Jeffrey, you as we just mentioned, you are a local. You speak all of the languages of the trade and of the country. We have someone in the Q&A asking if language is a factor. If certainly for someone coming from abroad, if language is kind of an obstacle, a limitation, or can eventually be an opportunity if you come with a specific language that can bring you to a certain desk for certain countries, for instance.
Sure. I would probably put it differently. I wouldn't say it's an obstacle or limitation, but I would say that an additional language is always a perk. So, I mean, it obviously will be an advantage if you do speak French, especially in our profession, because historically speaking, most of the legal texts that are drafted in French. Nonetheless, we now have more or less the pieces of legislation that are applicable to our sector, obviously translated in English as well. But I would say as a lawyer in Luxembourg, it would be very important to have French as an asset. But we do also recruit people that are not French speaking. And then obviously we have the German speaking candidates that have obviously the advantage of being able to speak to German clients in their native language, which is always an advantage. So I think language is not a barrier itself, but it can be an opportunity or perk if you do have additional languages in your catalog and your skill set that might always come handy. And I think for Luxembourg, it would be in particular French and German. But obviously, if you do have languages such as Chinese or any other Asian languages in your baggage, that would be obviously a very high credential and a good perk.
Is it the same for you, Tobias?
I agree, it's a plus. I have to say, virtually all of our business dealings are done in English. So solid foundation in English is a must. Like I said before, we interact with PE firms from all over the world, from North America, from Asia, from Europe, the UK. All of those interactions are typically performed in English. So, so English is a key skill for sure. But I completely agree with what Jeffrey said. You know, when it comes to dealing with an Asian manager, for example, and you happen to have a skill in you speak Mandarin or whatever the case may be, that can come in very, very handy indeed.
Very nice. So we have a question here in the chat from Elisa. Let's assume that you have an open position and you have many candidates. What is the thing that makes a candidate standing out if you compare with other? You said already personality, Tobias. Anything more for you or for Jeffrey?
I think she was also mentioning for those coming with no experience, so assuming coming out of the university.
I would say attitude and really the motivation to integrate the firm. I think it's somewhat natural, but I think people, they stand out during a recruitment process when they have this very expressive attitude towards integrating and being able to work hard, to grow, and to show a keen interest in what they want to do and be very focused. I think that's key.
I agree with everything you said, Jeffrey. This attitude, this personality features, you really should try to let those shine in an interview. This is as much finding out if it's a good fit for both sides. So it's not like you're just here to provide information or a service, but it's as much for you to explore as a candidate if this is the right place for you to work. I think it's very important that you really invest some time and energy into finding that out, because only if you're happy and motivated at the place you work at will you perform your best work. So this attitude part is key, and the aptitude on the other side is also important. So show initiative. Also during the interview, try to impress the interviewer a little bit with something he or she might not have expected. Do a little bit of research on the company you're interviewing at, and try to impress or surprise the interviewer with a fact you have learned about the company or the industry or something, or a current event that's happening in the industry that you read up on. That helps you stand out from the crowd.
As well as sometimes a follow-up email after the interview. I find that also to be a good.
Indeed. Yeah.
That's quite challenging because you get a lot of training as you go through your studies, but there's no course on attitude. So you really need to work it out. It's one of those. It's not even a soft skill. It's a personal characteristic that you need to maybe be more aware of and nurture. It's a big challenge you are giving to people, that they need. It's not to have attitude, but that to show that you have attitude. It's not easy.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah. Let's also add, based on this question with zero previous experience, that I believe that Luxembourg gives space to people with zero experience. I think there are many opportunities for people coming out just with a bachelor.
Yes,
absolutely.
Tobias, you were mentioning before that out of the 8 vacancies that you have, 4 are internships. So really starting level, entry level.
Exactly right. I think those are fantastic opportunities for graduates, or even for students who are in their final year of their studies, to get firsthand experience about what, in our case, investment funds in the PE space are all about. And that's a great way to get exposure to that industry, get a firsthand view of PE managers in action, and find out if this is the right path for you.
And I agree, internships are really important because you get to know the people, the working culture, People get to know you, and especially at our firm, I think we recruit on a very successful rate people out of internships, previous internships. So that's also, I think, a very good constellation to get to know the firm and vice versa.
Well, the next question we have here is not so much about the subject of this panel, but it clearly shows that it's someone that is not very into the the private equity sector in Luxembourg. So what are the particular type of clients that are setting up funds in Luxembourg? I don't know if one of you would like to give a brief answer on this.
Sure, I can tell you what I see from my perspective as a third-party AIFM and management companies. As you may know, Luxembourg is the second largest fund domicile in the world when it comes to assets under management after the United States. So we have a broad range of fund products that are domiciled here in Luxembourg, and all of those fund products need to be serviced. So that's where Luxembourg has been so successful in building that ecosystem of professionals that service all of these investment fund structures. So we manage everything from the very liquid strategies. So that means funds that invest in exchange traded securities, that are very liquid, that can be traded in and out of on a daily basis or even more frequently, to more illiquid and what's called alternative fund strategies. So these are funds that typically tend to make longer term investments, either in, for example, infrastructure project. So they make an investment and then hold that investment for multiple years, or in the PE sector, private equity funds will make investments in private companies or public companies, and by doing so, the general partners can obtain control over the management of those companies and introduce some operational changes to increase the profitability of those companies in the hopes of selling them later at a successful rate.
Jeffrey, do you want to add something?
I perhaps to get back to your question on who is actually setting up these funds in Luxembourg. These are this varies from the larger fund managers that are known throughout the world, the Blackstones of this world, the Apollos, etc., without to name them all, but I think most of them are also members of the LPA and disclosed on the website, so it might be worth just checking out online what they're doing in their as a daily activity. But there are also medium and smaller sized fund managers that are perhaps first-time fund managers that are looking into Luxembourg to set up their first fund, to invest in a private equity strategy. And that's where Luxembourg, I think, offers this very flexible toolbox for everyone. So we do see the very large, I would say 10 billion funds assets under management, but we also see smaller clients, typically also in the VC world, where first-time fund managers, they are setting up funds in Luxembourg with a 50 to 100 million fund. So I think in Luxembourg, we do not have just one very dedicated or targeted type of client in the sense of a fund manager, but we really cover the whole ground, all the strategies, all the types of fund managers that are out there. And on the other side, we also see a lot of investors that at least request our legal assistance on due diligence of Luxembourg funds. So this is obviously also another angle to funds, where you're not in the fund structuring phase, but you're more on the investor negotiation side, which is also very interesting. And you see investors from all around the world. There's no geographic scope. They can be the big pension funds, they can be smaller professional investors, high net worth individuals, family offices. So it's very diverse, and that makes it very interesting on a day-to-day basis.
That's very aligned with the key message of the conference of LPA that we had 2 weeks ago, where we wanted to position more investor relations. So just to say that there are always new roles that are developed in the market, either because the market changes or because the nature of the agents present in Luxembourg changes, and the role that they do in Luxembourg also evolves over time.
Yeah, and this is something that we're going to discuss also in the next panel, the evolution of the sector and the different roles. So just to conclude, would you like to give an advice to people who are listening to us, or to share a success story, something, you know, to inspire people to do the next step?
Something that can be mentioned in public.
I would say, but I'll probably repeat myself, but I think what's really, for me, the most important one is to get out of your comfort zone, because that's the way you're going to be able to grow and to kind of get your career fast-tracked, is really to get outside your cocoon, which we as Luxembourgers are often very comfortable in due to the very small country and due to the fact that we're not exposed to an international environment just by nature, such as other countries do. So I think the first one would be to go abroad, get some international experience. I, for myself, for instance, did secondments and internships in Dubai, in Hong Kong. So really try to get a different dimension to what you're doing internationally, but also then locally. You can, for instance, help local organizations such as the LPA in be it by technical committees to really get involved into the nitty-gritty details of a new regulation. You can participate in events, go to networking events. So really all of the I would say entrepreneurial spirit activities, I think, are key and important to grow.
Yeah, speaking of success stories and rewards, I'd just like to mention our firm. It's we started out in 2019, and we headed straight into a minor global pandemic, which was not part of our business plan, but we really came out of this on the other side a stronger firm and a tighter team. So that's very inspiring to me, in that we have been able to succeed with a different approach. Like I mentioned before, we don't have the standard corporate approach at One Group Solutions, but we're very much team-focused, team approach, where we collaborate across departments. That's ties back into what Jeffrey said before. Yes, you have to be comfortable to step out of your comfort zone. You won't be doing just one thing from 9 to 5 here, but you get a lot of exposure. You get a first-hand view of how investment management firms work, and it's specifically also how PE managers work. You'll see them in action, and that is very rewarding. So it's hard work, but it's very rewarding.
So thank you very much for sharing all this with us and the audience. And before we say goodbye, we would like to wish to Jeffrey happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, and thank you for having us.
So yes, thank you very much. We see the audience at 2 p.m. for the last panel of the day. And meanwhile, you always visiting the booth and exploring the vacancies there. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tobias.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.